We are coming up 10 o'clock, and this is Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour number 47. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be your host for the hour. We'll be here for an hour and longer if you want to hang around and chat. Uh, Let me see. I had a few things I wanted to say before we got right down to it. First, I want to acknowledge the new players we have on screen. Let's see. Bruce Lamb is here for his second time. Jeff Mullen for his second time. Mike Peace for his first time. We're trying to get audio established with him so he can introduce himself. And everybody else looks like a regular. Well, welcome all. Let me see. Last week we spent a little while talking about the future hybrid meetings and how that would work. And I just want to let you know that we had a pretty thorough discussion of it at the Lancaster Club meeting on Tuesday night this week. And along with that, I do have a PDF that outlines what we're proposing to do. So if you guys from other clubs would like a copy of that, drop me a note and I'll send you the PDF. We're talking about, we haven't decided yet, spending around $2,000, maybe a bit more, to get ourselves a laptop computer, another camera, a set of microphones, and the ancillary gadgetry that we'll need to hook it all up and have a hybrid meeting. By that, we mean a meeting in which we can have people in the room participating and people on Zoom participating, talking with each other and seeing the same demo or the same whatever's on the large screen anyway. The people in the room, of course, have the advantage that they can see everything all at once and they can touch the woodwork and say hi to each other. And the people on screen have the advantage that they didn't have to get in the car. So we're thinking it might work out well for everybody. On that, let me remind you that this is participatory video. This event has gone on every week for damn near a year now on the strength of, okay, what are you working on? Or if you aren't working on anything, what did you most recently work on? And if you can't remember what that was, what would you like to work on? One way or another, we're going to ask you all at one point or another to show your work, which you can do by sending pictures to me or to Doug, or by holding the work up beside your ear, or by shooting a video in your own shop, or by sharing your screen through Zoom. So there's no technical barrier to sharing your work, whether you want to take pictures or not, and you can take wonderful pictures and videos with any of the modern phones. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to, well, before I do, let me see who has stuff they want to show today, just so I get you on my list. I have Randy, I have Kathy, I have Mike Lebo, I have Doug, and I have maybe me. Bill Davis, Charlie Felson.
Mike Peace, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
One.
Who else was holding their hand up?
Ted Luttrell, if you have time.
Ted Luttrell. If not this week, we get you next week. Who else? Have I got them all now?
One.
And
Did
Bruce.
you get me?
Okay, before I go over to Randy, who's going to tell us how pens work and especially how you hold those damn little bits of things together on the lathe, I'm going to ask Mike Peace to say hi for a minute since you have audio, and most of us know Mike from his work and his writing. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been at this about 13 years and had a YouTube channel now for about 7 years, and started doing remote demos in 2018 based on Alan Zenrich's urging.
Very good. Well, we're glad to see you. If you've got some work in progress you want to show some week, we'll be glad to give you the floor for a little bit.
I do. I've got a few chessmen here.
You're making chessmen, you say?
I am.
Boy, that interests me a lot. If you're going to go grab one right now, I'm going to bring you up as a quickie prelim teaser. I'm going to spotlight you for everybody for a sec. Wow.
Nicely.
Whoa.
Nice.
What design are you using? What pattern? Your own or from a book?
This is a Baku 1961, which is capital of Azerbaijan. They had a big tennis tournament there, apparently. So I'm fascinated by the Russian designs. I just think they're very elegant in their simplicity. I've been doing a chess demo here since beginning of last year. You know, I did an article for American Woodturner last February, and the demo's been real popular. And I was turning lots of different men with different kind of woods during the demo, and it finally dawned on me that if I would focus in on one particular design and cut my blanks, in a couple of years I would have another full set turn. So that's what I'm working on.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Is that on your YouTube channel at all?
Yes, I've got a playlist of probably 10 videos on making 2 different chess sets.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
well, then I'll find the link to that, put it in the follow-up. We do a follow-up email out of this coffee hour usually on Friday sometime. What I do is edit up the video to cut out the dead time and select out any real good 10-minute, 20-minute chunks, post them on my site, post them to the Lancaster Club, and then send a follow-up email to everybody who's here on the screen or on my list with those links and any other links that land on me. Jim.
Mike, what wood is that?
This is maple. My other 2 sets were made out of Bradford pear, with one set using persimmon for the dark pieces, dyed persimmon.
Maybe we'll get you to give us a good shot about chess sets one week soon.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're fun.
I have in mind to do one. I'm going to turn over to Randy now. Randy's going to explain the pen world to us from his point of view. Spotlight for everybody. You ready to go, Randy?
Yep. Let's see if I can share my screen.
Yep.
John, while he's getting that set up, one comment to make on that PDF that you sent out. I skimmed it. I don't remember all the detail, but you might make mention that some of these, especially the other clubs, that we in Lancaster also have one of the camera booms that AAW uses.
Oh yeah, that's in there. There's a picture of it in the PDF actually.
Okay.
Yep. We're going to use that. We're going to need it. Okay, over to you, Randy. Give us the story. I'm going to make your screen as big as I can, at least in the recording. And I want you all guys to all know that up beside the green bar or whatever about Shu's screen, you might have the option to make his images large if he doesn't do that for us.
Yeah, I'm full screen now. I'm going to divide this up into required tools, good tools to have, and optional tools. And I prefer to think of it as operations rather than tools, because there are lots of different ways to do what you need to do. The required tools are on the screen. You need a pen kit. You need a mandrel. It has a taper that will fit into your taper of your lathe. It has a thumb nut usually. You'll have bushings, which are used to mount the pen blanks onto the mandrel, and you'll have a pen blank. The pen blanks are about 5/8 up to about 1 inch in square and about 5 to 6 inches long. There are lots of different materials you can use, not only wood, but all kinds of acrylics, everything you can possibly imagine. Somebody's made a pen kit of it. There's also, you can make them out of bone, horn. There are synthetic materials. You can make them out of stone, all kinds of materials. This is a bushing. This goes on the mandrel, and you can see on the left here, there's a hole in it that matches that mandrel. Now, mandrels are usually 7 millimeters or a D size, and this mandrel will fit, this bushing will fit right on that mandrel. This is a side view here. This is the size that you're looking for to make the pen blank. This goes inside the tube, the brass tube that the pen is built on. You're going to need some centers. Most notably, you're going to need a live center in your tailstock. This has a 60-degree point on it. And the reason for that is the end of the mandrel that hits the tailstock has a small hole in it that captures this live center. There's also items made like a Mandrel Saver. This actually goes around the mandrel. And this is a dead center, a drive center. And that'll be seen a little bit later. And these are the parts after you take them out of the bag and all the little baggies. I jokingly tell people that if the police ever raid my house, they're going to find all these little tiny little plastic bags. And these are the pen parts that normally go with a pen. This is a Faith pen made by Penn State Industries. And these are the operations you need. I'm not going to go through them one by one. You have to do these, but you can use any kind of tool that you have. You have to cut the blanks to length, but you can use a table saw, a band saw, a chop saw, even a small miter box with a miter saw will work, or even a scroll saw. Notice that the first page, this is here at the top is where we turn the pen down to the size. When I get to turning the pen, I'm about 2/3 of the way finished with it. And this is a jig that I use to cut the pen blanks. You have to cut them to about the length needed plus about a 32nd of an inch. This has a spacer here that I put the tube in, and then this distance right here is the same as the distance from here to here plus a 32nd of an inch. And so this is something I made, and none of this is unique to me.
That's a nice looking jig. I want to see it in action.
I didn't take any videos of it,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Another time.
There are a lot of different jigs that will work. And again, this is just something I made, and it fits on my sled that goes on my table saw. So these are the blanks that have been cut with the tubes in front of them. And I marked the tubes. You can see the cross I put in the middle. One side is the cap side, the other side is the nib side. And I do that because I want to match the grain when I build the pen. And now we're going to drill the hole, and I use a centering vise, and it goes under my drill press. This is a centering type vise. It holds the blank vertically so it can be drilled accurately. And now the hole for the tube will be drilled through the blank.
Randy, do you, when you're drilling that hole, do you start from the center line of the pen so that the hole is, if there's any deviation in the drill as it goes down, it still stays with the grain?
As long as you make the pen, as long as the hole comes out the other end and it has enough space, it doesn't matter if it's a bit offset.
So why wouldn't you drill it by putting the blank in a pin chuck and drilling on the lathe?
Yes, you can do that also. This is the way I do it, but yes, it is certainly possible to put the blank in a pin chuck or some kind of a holder and then drill it with a drill bit in the tailstock. And there are a lot of people that actually do that. I find this convenient because I make about 5 or 6 pens at a time.
Where'd you get the centering vise? Is that
there'll be a number of sources at the end. This is one that was made by Paul Hoffman. It's a very well-made vise, and it works smooth as anything, and it centers the blank exactly so your drill bit hits the center of the blank.
Randy's given me a list of his sources that I'm going to send out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Great.
Now here, this is a close-up of the blanks. They've been drilled, and I used thick super glue, but you can use polyurethane like Gorilla Glue, or you can use epoxy to glue the tubes in. You have to make sure that you don't get any glue inside the tube. But you can use any one of the three, and each one has pros and cons.
So how do you guarantee you don't get any glue inside the tube when you're pushing the tube through glue?
What you do is you block the end of the tube up with either Play-Doh. I use dental wax, which comes in sheets. Some people will actually use a slice of a potato. but anything that will keep the glue out.
Why wouldn't you just turn a little tapered plug?
Yeah, you could do that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why
But
not,
that's overkill.
why not glue the insert before you put it in and then just slide it in?
The glue will bubble up around the end of it and enter the pushing end.
Yeah, as you push it in, the glue will get on the end.
Okay.
And you definitely want, you'll have to clean out that glue if any gets in there. That has to be squeaky clean. This is my dust hood. This is my dust hood. It fits on my lathe, and it has magnets underneath that stick to the bedways, and it has dust collection on it. And also, it has a Lexan shield on top. When you're making pins, the only thing I worry about is my eyes. Pens are not that big and not that heavy, so I don't really worry about that hitting me, except for my eyes. This allows me to put that hood down, and then I don't have to worry about it. And I can reach underneath it with my tools.
So this is sized specifically to pens.
You can make
And
any
small
kind
stuff.
of small, like bottle stoppers, duck calls, any kind of thing like that. And again, this isn't unique to me. I do have a diagram, but the only critical dimension on this is this little cutout right here.
Yeah.
That is sized to the distance between the spindle nose and the bedways on your lathe. So you have to kind of customize it that way.
It looks like it would only work with pen mandrels, but if you're doing small spindle work requiring a chuck, you'd probably have to come up with a little different arrangement, huh?
Yes, yeah, you would. I do use it with my sanding jig, though. We'll get into that in a few minutes. This is a brass gun brush. I can never say that right. It's used to clean out the gun barrels, and it consists of a bunch of different brass brushes. And this is what I use to clean out any glue that might be inside the tubes. And sometimes I'll have to use an X-Acto knife as well. Now, the one thing that you have to do is that you have to mill or grind the end of the blank so it is perpendicular to the tube that's in the blank. Not to the outside of the tube, but to the tube that's in the blank. And so this has 4 cutters. This goes into the tube, and then the cutters will mill the will mill the end of the blank so it's perpendicular. And if you don't do that, you can get uneven joins between the pen's blanks and the fittings. This is a chamfering tool. I use this because it makes the brass tube. I just stick this on the end, give it a couple twists, and it chamfers the end of the brass tube so that it makes it easier to push the fittings in. The fittings are normally pressed into the blanks. This is another nice to have. It's almost required, but it's a transfer punch set. And you can get these for about $10 or $20 at Harbor Freight. And they're handy for all kinds of things with making pens. Now, I do not use a pen mill or a barrel trimmer. I use a sanding jig. And this is the tail part of the sanding jig and a drawbar that holds it onto the tailstock. And next, this is the sanding jig in use. I have a small disc sander that goes on here, and there's a pin that goes into the sanding block in the tailstock. And next, I believe we'll have a video showing how this works. There it is. One. Nicely sanded, perpendicular, and normally what I'll do is sand down until I hit the brass tube in the ends. That one I wasn't quite all the way down to it, but that's normally what you do. And then I use the chamfering tool to remove any burrs on the ends of the brass tubes.
Randy, is there any reason I couldn't do that with a skew chisel?
No, you could use a skew chisel for that, but you'd have to be really careful.
I would hold it on dead level with and use it as a scraper.
Yeah, you could likely do that, but remember, you'd have to align it with the inside, with the tube that's inside there.
Yeah, that would be the skill challenge. You would learn how to, I mean, for me, I would, if I could learn how to do that with my tools rather than additional jigs, I would go there just as a choice in wood turning. And I don't mean that in any way to be critical, that's my interest in pen turning is the question, can I do this with the tools that I have, or do I have to buy all this stuff?
No, you don't have to buy all this stuff. All of it is fairly cheap, and you can always come up with workarounds for everything. In fact, what you could do is take that transfer punch, put it in a Jacob's chuck in the tailstock, put a small piece of sandpaper in your headstock, and then sand it down that way.
Sure.
And you would have all that except for the transfer punches. So here is, I've laid out the bushings and the blanks. And the next thing is we're going to assemble it onto the mandrel, and then we're going to start turning it. Okay. There's our pen mandrel. And it has a spacer on it. I'm going to put on the bushing on the end. One blank. Bushing in the middle. A cap blank. And the bushing on the end. And now, one more spacer. And this gets tightened down. This can go away. This now goes into the headstock, the paper end. This is a 60-degree live center. That goes into the tailstock. That goes up, gets locked down, and we're ready to turn. I hope that's the last recording I have to do with that. I did that about 8 times.
So, Randy, what would you say is the difference between a mandrel and a jig?
It's just the name. It's just called a mandrel. There's no real difference.
Thank you.
Now this shows the Mandrel Saver in operation. The Mandrel Saver pushes directly on the bushing rather than using a thumb nut. It eliminates one more part where you could get inaccuracies in your pen.
Where is that in the picture, please?
It's right in this area. This is the Mandrel Saver.
Oh, I see it now.
Rather than a 60-degree live center, this is a live center with a hole in the middle that exactly fits the mandrel. Almost all mandrels are 7 millimeters or 0.246, a D size. And so a lot of people like this. I don't normally use it, but I have one. Now, the next thing you're going to need, and this is really a required tool, is some kind of digital calipers and you can get them from, oh, almost, the Harbor Freight has them on special a lot for like 10 bucks. And you don't need a real accurate one. I prefer the digital rather than an analog caliper, because one of the things you can do is you can use it to set the target size you are looking for. And you do that by putting the calipers on the fitting you're trying to match up with and pressing the 0 button. And now you can see how much oversized you are when you're turning. And here I'm starting to turn these pen blanks down. This shows me that I'm 75 thousandths of an inch over my target size. And I try to be within about 3 thousandths of an inch of the fitting size. One of the things that I found out, this is a good trick to learn, is I lay the back of a tool across the bushing while the lathe is running. If it bounces or vibrates, then I have to find out where I'm out of round. And you'll have run out, and your pen blank will be thicker on one side than on the other side. It'll be really noticeable. And that's just a trick I picked up a long time.
That's a good tip.
Now this is the dead center. I'm going to go back to the previous one. Next, we're going to look at turning between centers. This has come up in the last couple of years as a way of eliminating a lot of the inaccuracy of bushings and the pen mandrel that you use. And so turning between centers allows you to very accurately turn a pen kit. Okay, this is the dead center that was in the first part of the presentation, and we're going to look at it now, and it's used for turning between centers. So this goes into the headstock. Then we get these turn between center bushings. And you'll notice that these have no hole in the middle. They are intended only for this purpose. And what we're going to do is put them in from this end and put the other one in from this end. Then they'll go onto the live center.
Do you want
And the 60-degree tailstock comes up and it's squeezed in between here. And now we can turn one barrel at a time very accurately. Yeah, turning between centers, the bushings that are made by the different companies that produce pens tend to be not of the highest specs. And so pen makers mostly came up with turn between centers as a way of making pens a lot more accurately, because the bushings that the machinists make tend to be much higher quality and turned down and sized to much tighter specs.
So on that method, I could turn a bushing in boxwood or pearwood and use it, it seems to me, yeah?
Yes, yes. And I would tend to use some kind of synthetic like corian or one of the synthetic materials. But yeah, a lot of people do that. Now here I am, I've done turning, and I sanded these blanks from about 220 up to about 600 grit. And now they're ready to actually be finished. And what I'm going to do is put these small cone-shaped bushings that are shown here, and I'm going to apply a super glue, a CA finish to the pens. Pens get handled a lot, and most finishes won't stand up to constant use. So these cone centers actually keep the CA from getting underneath and from getting onto the mandrel, which would be bad.
So Randy, you mentioned about the handling, getting a lot of use. What's the advantage of having the mandrel so accurate when you get to the end pen? It seems to me that you're spending a lot of energy on something that's not necessarily going to give you, well, it doesn't really have an impact on the final product as far as the user is concerned. It may have as far as you're concerned, but not as far as the user is concerned.
Yeah, but if the point is, if you don't turn the pens very accurately, the feel of the pen is terrible.
Okay.
It's either turned oversized, which is not too bad, but if you turn a pen barrel undersized, and my first one, I did that. I still have it, and it's laying right here in front of me. And it is terrible to hold in your hand. You can feel that edge is lower, the barrel is lower than the fitting, and it just feels terrible.
So what you're trying to say is you're trying to protect against overshoot as far as cutting.
Yes, yes. And the general rule is try to eliminate anything that causes errors in sizing or roundness or concentricity. So you're trying to be accurate, as accurate as you can. And I'm going to apply a thin CA finish on this. I use about 4 or 5 coats. When I'm done, I will, as a final step, use 4/0 steel wool. And that makes a pen, that creates a pen that feels like wood, but it has this super glue finish on it. Now the next one, here's a close-up of these cone bushings. You can get these at Woodcraft if you want. The other option is to make sure that you definitely want to wax your bushings and the mandrel. You do not want to super glue your blanks to the mandrel. And here I am pressing in. Now, they do make pen presses, pen assembly presses, and there are a bunch of different ones. There's probably a good 6 or 8 different companies that make these. But what I do is I don't like a single task tool. So what I did was I put a wood jaws on my wood turning or my woodworking vise, and I press the parts together. You have to make sure you align the part with the fitting with the barrel, and then you press it in until it seats. And here I'm pressing.
The press that I use sometimes was a drill press.
There are a bunch of different ways to do this. I have some small plastic blocks that actually fit in the lathe and can be used with the tailstock to press the pens together. But yeah, a drill press, people will take a bolt, put it into the drill press, and then use it to press the pen together. I've even seen people use squeeze clamps. Almost anything will work to squeeze the pen together as long as they're easily controllable.
Well, in the drill press, you could clamp a block on the table, drill a hole for that pointy part that would perfectly anchor it underneath the quill, and then drill and go from there. I mean, it would be pretty easy to set up dead on.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And in this case, one of the things I know is that there's a metal piece that sticks out of this center band. And I don't want to press on that piece because it's rather delicate. And so I made a block up that pushes only on the outside of that center band. It doesn't push on the inside at all. And here I am. This is a bit off center. Pressing the finial into the top cap. And this is a source of sources of different pen making supplies. The International Association of Pen Turners, IAP, is located at that website. Great bunch of guys. They can explain anything to you. The IAP also produced an app called Bushings and Tubes, which you can get either for Apple or for Android devices. And there are also charts on the IAP website to do any kind of to basically duplicate the bushings and tubes. But this gets updated as more pens and newer pen styles become available. Suppliers of pen materials, Woodcraft. The Woodcraft in Harrisburg has quite a lot of pen kits in stock. And I try to give them my business when I can because I want them to be there when I need something. Exotic Blanks, Ed and Dawn are really great people to know. I'm convinced that they have a time machine that they send the orders back in time, because I order something and a day later it's here. And they're in Wisconsin.
I'm going to put this list out in the chat in the follow-up tomorrow.
Okay. Penn State Industries, Berea Craft Supplies. Colin Sean's Woods produces pen blanks that are laser cut with all kinds of designs in the blank. Fish, hunt for supplies for hunting, and all kinds of things. Rick Harrell, who's on IAP, makes that sanding jig and a bunch of other things like tool posts and tool rests. They're modular. He doesn't do this as a profession. He doesn't do this for money. He does it as a service to the pen making community. And you can contact him at his email address, or you can look on penturners.org for all the different items he has available. MSC, which is Manhattan Supply Company, sells all kinds of drill bits and machining parts and all kinds of things. They have a warehouse in Jonestown, which is right near the intersection between Route 78 and 81, where they're split. Little Machine Shop sells parts and tools to the small metal lathe community. They're in California, but a lot of their items are applicable to either woodworking or pen making. And ta-da! This is the pen that you saw me create. It's a faith pen. The center band says faith, hope, and love.
Randy, super show.
There's all kinds of embellishments you can apply to a pen. This is one I did quite a few years ago. It's a Celtic Knot Pen. It's an inlaid pen, and I have a jig that I use for inlays, but I'm going to close out at this point. Questions?
How many pens have you made, Randy? You ever keep track?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
At least.
Randy, I'm going to stop your share and go to the gallery view so we can do questions. We don't ordinarily have such a long and detailed show as that, but Randy volunteered it, and I know that's too good to pass up. So, questions for Randy?
Pretty well covered it in a lot of detail.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I find it pretty, I don't think I'm ever going to make more than 1 or 2 pens just to be sure I know how, but I'm always interested in precision techniques and ways of getting control over hand processes that are very much at risk if you screw it up, and ways of making it work and get the accuracy you need for a project. I find all of that really interesting.
Randy, I see you probably turn a lot of wood pens. We have somebody here that's done a lot of pens, and he indicated when he was selling them that the acrylics outsold wood, I think something like 9 to 1. Do you have a similar experience?
Yes. The shine on an acrylic pen sells a lot of pens.
How about precious metals? Do they go for gold and rubidium or something like that?
No, normally the fittings are either silver or gold, but they make them in black titanium and a couple of other finishes. There are also people that make what are called kitless pens. They don't have a kit that they come with. They make everything. They thread the pieces, they cast the pieces, they drill them out. It's quite a process.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move us along. It's we got about another 20 minutes, so we'll get to visit a few more people. Mike Lebo, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. This is your threading apparatus, is it, Mike?
Yeah, I'm looking for some pictures here. Got a bunch of blanks. Okay, this is the first thing I did just the other day, and it's out of dogwood, actually. This thing out. All right. Something's not working here for me.
Yeah, you're having the same struggle I was having. Show us.
I have some pictures here of some threads that I did with a 3/4 by 10, and it did not work well at all, as you could see. The threads don't get very nice. It does thread, but it's not very good.
Did you try put glue on that first, super glue or anything to size it?
No, I didn't at the time. This is the inside part of that box that I did with that. But
You say 3/4 by 10. What type of cutter were you using?
it's a 60-degree.
Okay, you were using a rotary cutter.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I'll have a picture of that up here if I can find it.
Yep.
So here I'm turning a piece of locust. You can see here on the end that there's a drawbar in there to hold that drill chuck in there so it doesn't come flying off. Mike Peace, I'm glad you're on here because I got this design from you. I have basically the same thing that Barry had. Let me throw this disclaimer out there. I'm not a machinist like Barry is, and my tolerances aren't quite as tight as his.
Well, that was certainly a big lesson learned for me of the importance of concentricity and registration in making a threading jig. Because if you don't get it turning on center and concentric, you don't do well.
Yeah. I'm learning as I go, and I've only got about 4 or 5 boxes that I really made that worked well. Here's while I'm cutting the inside of the. Well, I actually stopped it, but just took a picture of it that way. That again is that locust. A lot of blank pictures for some reason. This is the threads inside the boxwood thing. That was another thing I learned is I used to put the threads in and then turn the inside of the box. I found out it's better to turn the inside of the box and then put the threads in.
Oh, yeah.
This is the cutter that I use. It's made by Moon. It's a 3/4 by 3/16 by 3/8 and 60 degrees.
Where did you get that cutter?
Bought it off of, I think, Amazon. It's like $39.
Yeah, I found that one too. It was easy to find.
Yeah. You just look up the...
Yeah, Chefware Kit sells it, and I think you can get it from MSC Direct. It's a common machine, off the shelf part apparently.
Yeah.
Right.
High speed steel.
Barry found a carbide version. It's referenced in the 2 videos that we've made of Barry's.
His was really nice.
Yeah.
And I learned from Barry to put this Teflon on the screw thing because the screws and the nuts are not real tight as far as
Sloppy, yeah.
yeah, they're very sloppy. And I actually need to put more Teflon on this to make it work.
Is that a 3/4 thread you said?
This one is a 1x8 thread.
Okay.
So my
I made that when I made that exact jig. I threaded the wood directly. Not there's no nuts in there, and used a split block to tighten down on it. That worked pretty good.
Yeah. Well, that would help with tolerance. That's for sure.
You got to have a tap that matches 1/8.
Yeah.
What I did with mine was I bought a 3/4 inch rod, which you can get from Home Depot, Lowe's, or other industrial suppliers off the shelf. The tolerance of and the threads are rolled on, so they're not really high quality, but they're easy to get. And it's easy to get from Penn State a spindle adapter for some of the older lathes, smaller lathes like older Craftsman and I think Shopsmith. They had spindle adapters that fit a 3/4, and then you could easily, you know, it fit the lead screw on one end, and then it'd have a 1 inch to fit a 1 inch by 8 chuck.
Yeah. This just seemed easy because of my chuck's a 1x8. I figured I could just put it right in there. And you can see the nut here has a set screw in it. I drilled a hole in there and put a set screw so I could tighten the chuck up against that nut, and that it would not come loose for me.
The other thing you can do is use epoxy putty around a chuck that's covered well with Vaseline and basically make a mold around your Home Depot thread. I've done that too. It works pretty good.
Yeah.
This is like your Alan here with a question. You put that set screw in. Does that mess up your threads then?
Not really, because it stays there all the time. I don't move that.
It's a permanent one. Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't have welding capabilities, so I just figured a set screw would be the best.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
This is cutting the outside threads on that dogwood box. There it is again. I've learned that if you turn this handle 2.5 times, that gives me 1/8 inch difference movement. That seems to work out pretty good. That's it. I'm done.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gallery view back. Questions for Mike? Kathy Gower, I was going to show your pictures, but I'm not only, I have them here ready, but I'm not only, I have too much attention on people waving their hands to properly share, and I didn't get them properly over to Doug.
John, I got them working okay on my screen with the
iPhoto. If you can share them, show them, because there's some pretty cool pens in there, since we're on pens today.
Just let me share a screen on you and see.
Okay.
There we are.
Go for it, Kathy. Tell us about them.
That's my brother, Jeff Carroll, and myself, and we really got into pen making during the Christmas holidays, and we're selling quite a few. And if you go to some of the pens, I did a lot with beads. The ladies seem to like beads on, not just a straight pen, but have like the beads on them, and the inlay was just a really big hit with the ladies. So I did quite a few with inlay. This is a tobacco stick, and I don't know if you guys from the north know what a tobacco stick is, but in the South, when they would crop the tobacco in the summer, they would take it back to the barn and put it on sticks that they then hung into the barns to cure. And these, the little blanks that you see above the pen are pieces of the tobacco stick. And so a lot of folks here in the South still have their tobacco sticks. They no longer use those in the barns, but they still have them, and a lot of folks, it's very nostalgic. We sold hundreds of tobacco stick pens during Christmas, and they are so brittle and have, the wood is just, they're so old. So I used CA glue to stabilize them. And that's what you see, the darker markings in that pen are where that particular tobacco stick was stabilized with the CA glue.
Well, up in Lancaster County, we have lots of tobacco barns and drying tobacco, just like what you're talking about.
Yeah. These were actually made for a friend of mine that had ordered them for Christmas, and they're made out of hardy pine flooring that came out of a home that they were restoring that was over 100 years old. And so we took the flooring and just made pen blanks out of them. And there you see quite a few designs. This is just an acrylic executive pen. Like he was saying, they shine up pretty and look good. There's another acrylic.
Where do you buy your pen supplies? Kits?
I buy most of my pen supplies from either Craft Supplies or Penn State Industries.
Okay.
The three that you just saw, if you'll go back there, Doug, for 1 second. These are also tobacco stick pens, but the funny thing with that is that tobacco sticks were made out of what kind of wood they had available on the farm. So whatever tree they cut down, they'd make tobacco sticks out of it. So we have here poplar, oak, and pine, I think was what the other one was.
Cool.
These were an order for Christmas that were tobacco stick pens. This is my alma mater, East Carolina University. We're purple and gold, and we're pirates with swashbuckles and skull and crossbones. So these have been a big hit at the university, and I've sold quite a few of those during Christmas, and those are Penn State Industries has that particular kit.
So when you say you sold a lot of those, how much time do you have in one pen? And do you make them in batches or one-offs? How do you do it?
Well, that's the thing. Jeff and I, we typically make up the blanks in one day. So we may do 25 or 30 blanks in one day, the two of us, just prepping the blanks like Randy was talking about and getting them ready to put on the lathe. Once we have them ready to put on the lathe, I can turn a pen out in an hour.
Cool. Thank you.
It's the prep work is what takes the longest. That's just another one with the inlay.
Oh, sorry.
And that's poplar. Those are two different poplar, but you can see the difference in the poplar. Some of them are really green and some of them are not. That was a gift from my husband, that's the golfer. And those were tobacco sticks from my grandfather's farm.
What do you use for the inlays, Kathy?
Turtle Feathers has a synthetic turquoise inlay that I use quite often. That was showing you that particular picture here is showing you the men in the barn, and that's how they hang the tobacco on the tobacco sticks in the barn. So that's what we're using for the tobacco stick pens.
Kathy, in Lancaster, they call them tobacco lath.
Oh, okay. Well, and we're in North Carolina, so the USS North Carolina is in Wilmington, and I happened to go down to a wood shop down there. I saw a guy advertising that he had a few pen blanks of the original teak flooring from the USS North Carolina. So I went in there and grabbed up what I could get and made a few pins out of the original teak flooring from the USS North Carolina, which is pretty special to me. That was my very first pin that I turned. And that was
looks like Purple Heart.
Yeah, I think it was Purple Heart.
That's a chick pen there. No guy would, no guy would put that in his hand.
And that's also a pin, and that one had actually had quite a few nail holes in it. Like I said, he had very slim pickings for what he had left in his stash. So there was a lot of rot and a lot of nail holes. So I just filled those in with some of the turquoise resin and made a pin out of it anyway.
That's the last one I have, Kathy.
That's it.
Okay.
Very nice.
Up your share.
Thanks, Kathy. Nice.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.
So we're coming right up on the hour. So I'm just going to say, first of all, the picture I was trying to show was from Judy Stone of a whole lot of tulip poplar on their property in, I guess it's Western Maryland. Tree came down, lots more wood than they need. Anybody wants to go get some, I imagine she'd be amenable to it. I think she is. And that just shows you also, as this thing goes on, it's better to send your pictures to Doug than to me, because I get Doug is faithfully and very helpfully handling that, both for the Lancaster Monthly Club meeting and for coffee hour. So he's getting good at it, and he's set up to do it in a way that I'm not. And on that note, dudes and ladies, or dudettes, it's 11 o'clock, and thank you very much for another very entertaining coffee hour. And I hope to see you all next Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
Thank
you very much.
everybody.
Yep. Thank you.
Everybody.
And goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.